Hello, it's Pete Taylor here. One day to go till sourdough Saturday, so today's the day that I'm going to be bulking up my starters to make a sponge, which will be sitting overnight in quite large quantities, enough to make 6 loaves tomorrow, because there's going to be 6 bakers in the herringcorn mill making 2 sourdough loaves each. So at the moment I've got a small portion of my rye sourdough starter and my wheat sourdough starter. I've been cutting them back every day and feeding them, well, nearly every day for the last 33 days. So they've been very well developed. They're in very good shape, both starters. They've both been feeding well. They're both hungry and ready to go again. Plenty of gas, plenty of bubbles in evidence here. So just have a quick look what they look like now, and you'll see where all my hard work over the last month has got us. And then I'm going to tip the starters out into a big mixing bowl so that you can progressively give them bigger and bigger feeds during the day, and then at night they're going to have a big feed to keep them really busy overnight. And then in the morning I'll give them a small feed a couple of hours before I want to bake with them, and then we're ready to go sourdough Saturday. So let's just have a look what they're like now. So here's the rye, which has been causing me quite a few worries over the month, but it's looking very full of gas, which is the main thing. You're never going to see much in the way of good structure in there, but plenty of gas, and it's looking very happy really. It smells good. It's no longer got the wild bitter edge. That's gone. That's very nice now. That's nice and tangy. Makes your mouth water, but it's not making your eyes water, which is a good place to be. And here's the very well behaved wheat spongy one, which is also looks very happy with the way it's been treated. So now I'm going to pour those out, as I say, into these 2 mixing bowls, and I'm going to start making a big sponge. So at the end of the day I need 2,100 grams of sponge to allow 300 grams for each loaf and 300 grams over for accidents and for people to take home. So I'll get on with that now. Okay, so let's start with the rye. I'll get the wheat out of the way. I'm just going to turn the whole thing out into this mixing bowl. No need to knock it back now, because I'm in the business of creating more and more. I don't need to keep the amount low. Doesn't need to be governed by how much room there is in the fridge anymore. We want to take all of this starter, and it goes. Now I'm feeding this now with 100 grams of flour and 140 grams of water, so I'm maintaining that 7 parts of water to 5 parts of flour ratio, which I've been doing throughout, so that at the end of the day my sponge, when I come to bake in the morning, will be 140% hydrated, and I can just adjust the hydration back to 70% thereabouts when I bake. So there we are, that's the beginning of my sponge. Leave that to rest for a few hours now, and I'll come back and feed it again with an even bigger amount. So the idea is every time you feed it, you're feeding it with more than its own weight in food. So that's now got a little bit from the starter plus 100 grams of flour, 140 grams of water. So next time I'm going to feed it with 200 grams of flour and 280 grams of water. So I'll keep bulking it up in the same proportion, 5 parts flour to 7 parts water, until I get to the weight that I want. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the wheat starter. Turn the whole thing out of my pot. This gives me an opportunity to move it into a new pot when I take some back later today. It's never a bad idea to have your change your pot every few days, a week or so. And if you if your starter is just being maintained in the fridge, you might want to think about changing it whenever you feed it and put it back. If you're only feeding it once a week, then change the pot once a week, why not? So, same again, 100 grams of flour, 140 grams of water. So I'm going to keep building this up until I've got 2001, until I've got over 2001, and then I'm going to take away the difference to leave myself exactly the right amount in the bowl for baking tomorrow, and the bit that I take back will just go back in the fridge, and it'll be in very good shape just to leave it there for next time I want to bake. So this one always needs a little bit more work to get rid of the lumps, so give this a bit of a whiz. Make sure that anything's stuck to the side of the bowl. Stir it up until it gets rid of all the lumps. And that'll do. It'll do some of the work for me when I put it to rest. It'll get busy on the flour straight away. You don't have to be too precious about this, but you really don't want to have lumps in there if you can avoid it. Right, so there we are. We now have two rather marvellous starters on the way to becoming rather marvellous sponges. Just have a look what they look like now, and then we'll have a look what they look like in a few hours' time when I come back to feed them again. Where's that pot? Right, so let's have a look what my sponges are looking like at the start of the process of bulking them up. So there's a few big bubbles there. That's just from the mixing up process. That's not showing that they've produced lots of gas already. Same thing here, not much to see. When we come back, there should be lots of bubbles of that kind of size. Where's it gone? That one there. You should see plenty more of those coming to the surface. These are just from the mixing up. So it all looks quite smooth when you get close up, but it should look good and frothy in a few hours' time. This one I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but there'll be plenty of gas when you move it, so we'll be able to tell it's on the way, and I'm sure it will be. Okay, so we'll have another look in a few hours. So now it's time for the second feed of the day for these two sourdough sponges that we're going to use in the herring cornmeal tomorrow. They've had 4 hours to digest the first feed I gave them today, which was 100 grams of flour and 140 grams of water. So now I'm going to double up on that so that the next feed is 200 grams of flour, 280 grams of water. So every time it gets fed, it thinks, great, I've got more than my own weight in food to eat now, let's party. So I'm going to just, no cutting back now or anything, I'm going for bulk now. As long as I can keep the ball rolling and keep the yeast thinking there's plenty more food to work on, it'll just keep working away through the rest of the day, overnight, right into tomorrow, and when we come to bake with it tomorrow, it'll be absolutely raring to go. That's the theory. So I'm going to do the rye first, in with 200 grams of flour, 280 grams of water. It's smelling very nice and fresh, this yeast, this rye sponge now. None of the violent smells coming off it that were happening before. It's really in very good shape, I think, so I have high hopes for this tomorrow. We should get some really good results out of that. It's a nice rough meal really that I'm using to make this, so there'll be plenty of texture in the rye bread that we make with it tomorrow at the herring cornmeal. It still looks very much like porridge kind of consistency. There's no stretchiness to it. It's all gloop and no stretch, because there's no useful gluten in the rye. There is some gluten, but it's the wrong kind for making a gluten network. So it's no use for helping bread to stand up, but it's really good for flavour. So let's do the same thing with the wheat. 200 grams of flour going in, 280 grams of water, so everything's still at the same consistency, namely 5 parts flour, 7 parts water, so it's 140% hydrated, which is twice as wet as the dough that we're going to make with it tomorrow. And we'll make that adjustment at the last minute when we add the rest of the flour for making dough on Saturday morning. It's a traditional quarter sponge way of developing your bread. It's an old-fashioned way really, but it works very well, and the sourdough is very happy working that way, so I don't see any need to change that. And it virtually guarantees that you have a very active sourdough culture when you come to bake with it. This is a lot easier to mix up now there's more of it. Just get in there, beat out some of those lumps. You don't want a lumpy flour, you don't want anything stuck on the side of the bowl. And so long as I give it a good mix up, the yeast will do the rest of the work for me. I'm going to leave that now till 11 o'clock at night, so it's got about an 8-hour wait while it eats all this food that I've just given it, and I'll give it a final massive feed overnight so it can be working way through the night. Roughly 400 grams of flour feed and 560 grams of water, and then I'll have a great big bowl full to take to the mill with me tomorrow to share it with everybody that's baking on sourdough Saturday. Just a little bit stuck to the spoon there that needs a bit more working in. Don't want any lumps passing through my filter at this stage. Get it all nice and smooth, and it'll be ready to go in the morning. There we are. So I'll come back at 11 o'clock and see how we're going on then. So here's the rice starter that's been standing for 4 hours. That's bulking up nicely, and you can see here that there's some very good bubbles starting to surface on the wheat after 4 hours. So these are now going to get a second feed, and then they'll be left for another several hours until I feed them again tonight before going to bed. So here we are, it's 11 o'clock at night, the night before sourdough Saturday, and I'm just about to give these little sponges their final feed of the day. This is a massive feed with 400 grams of flour and 560 grams of water, and then they'll get a little light breakfast in the morning. We'll just have a look what they look like before I feed them, because they've done quite a lot of bubbling since we looked at them last. Here's the rye, which you can see is bubbling vigorously away. That's producing masses of gas at the moment. It's a real heady breathe. If you get on top of this and take a breath, it's a really gassy area to be. If you look here at the two together, you'll see that the rye on the left has grown a lot higher up the bowl than the wheat on the right. That's not to say that the wheat on the right hasn't been producing plenty of gas, because it really has. There's lots of good medium-sized bubbles in there all over the place, so that's in very good shape indeed. This one, however, is producing lots of gas, but it will just fall back because it's not got the structure to trap it the way the wheat does. But they're both looking pretty good now, and they're both ready for a massive feed to see them through the night. So I'll give them that now and leave them out in the kitchen actually overnight, and then they'll be ready to go in the morning. Good morning, Pete Taylor here. It's sourdough Saturday at last, and I've only just got up. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just going to give my 2 sourdough starters a final feed, a brief breakfast before being plunged into the fiery furnace at the Heron Core Mill. As you can see, I've bulked up both starters to over 2 kilograms in weight. The rye one has been very active. Unfortunately, I made a bit of room for it to grow by putting some in a separate bowl, but they're both going to get 175 grams of flour, 245 grams of water, just to get them started this morning, and then we'll be hungry again by the time we want to make dough from the sponge later on this morning. So let's have a look what they look like now, and then I'll feed them and take them with me to Herring Cornmill. See you later. So here's the rye bubbling madly away, which is exactly where I wanted to get it to. It's been producing masses of gas, quite strong smelling gas, but the taste of the sponge itself is quite mild really now, certainly compared to how it was when it started. Fortunately, before I went to bed last night, I made a bit of room for this to grow by starting an overflow bowl there, otherwise it would have been all over the kitchen table. This one here, I said yesterday I was wanting to see lots of bubbles under the surface bursting out. You can see that's exactly what's happened. We've got a load of froth on the top as well. I'm not so impressed with that as by the bubbles under the surface there. You can see it's a raging torrent of wheat starts there. I'm very pleased with that. And here's the food that I'm going to give them, and that's it. Time to go to market.